This is Eddie Bromley. This is the Book of Revelation in 5 minutes, part 16.
In chapters 12 through 14, John will see a series of visions that he'll use to explain what's happening as God's people try to push back the darkness, and yet as the darkness tries to push back upon the people of God and the announcement of God's kingdom. The first series of signs, or the first sign rather, is a sign of a cosmic war, a spiritual war that's been going on all the way since the Garden of Eden, as the serpent, the devil, fights against God and God's people. This time it takes form in the place of a beautiful woman and her children, as the serpent, as the dragon, makes war upon her and her children. The woman is about to go into labor. And as she delivers this child, the dragon wraps its teeth around the child, seeking to devour it. But the child is snatched out from the jaws of the dragon, and so the designs of the serpent, the dragon, are defeated and frustrated. We, in this story, think of images like Pharaoh as he tried to destroy the firstborn of Israel. We think, of course, of King Herod as he killed the innocents, trying to destroy the young Jesus. Who is this woman? She's crowned with glory and 12 stars. Well, she is multivariant. She is Israel. She's the church. She's Mary, the mother of God. She's all of these things, and she and her children represent the totality of Jesus' people. And the enemy seeks to make war on her. But suddenly there's like wings of eagles that come and bear her up and protect her. This imagery comes from Deuteronomy and Exodus and from Isaiah, and it is about God's divine protection. If you use a concordance or a keyword search in a Bible app, look up the wings of eagles, and you will see this imagery in a number of places in the Old Testament, and it represents God's divine protection. As the dragon is unable to destroy her offspring, her immediate offspring, which represents Jesus, he then makes war on her other children. Interestingly, the world itself creates a flood and sweeps back the dragon. Now, here's something important to remember. There are two ways in which the New Testament talks and uses the word world. When it's speaking about the powers and the structures that are aligned against God, then it's speaking of the world as something that is evil, will be judged, and ultimately destroyed. But when the Bible speaks of the world, such as in "For God so loved the world," he's speaking of God's beloved creation. And in that case, it's important to remember this is our Father's world, and it does His bidding, including that which is to protect God's people. Two more ideas from this passage. First, I want you to also focus on the woman's birth pangs. These birth pangs, this imagery comes both from the Old Testament and from the Gospels themselves, and they represent the sufferings and struggles and the trials of God's people as they wait upon the arrival of the kingdom. They also represent the spiritual struggle as the forces of evil and the forces of good wage war with one another, and as the kingdom of this world breaks into this, or the kingdom of God breaks into the kingdom of this world and causes quite an upheaval. Those birth pangs are signs of things to come, of one age dying and coming to an end, and a new age being born in Jesus. Finally, I want you to notice that the woman must spend and travail some time in the desert as she awaits the promises of God to be fulfilled. This imagery, of course, comes from the Old Testament as God's people spend time in the wilderness, both as they make their way to the Promised Land, then again in exile, and their return to the Promised Land. And of course, it represents Jesus in the wilderness as he struggles with Satan, and the fact that we are a pilgrimage people going through a time of the desert as we await the fullness of God's kingdom to arrive.
Like this video, please give it the thumbs up and be sure to subscribe for future content.